Hey, it's Big Daddy, and we're here with another Big Daddy and Friends. And I have to say, this next guest, obviously, it's well documented that we go back all the way to college. And, I have to say that I owe a lot of gratitude to this fine gentleman because he's not only my former college teammate, he's also like a brother to me. So, with all that being said, let's welcome Neil O'Donnell, the Big Daddy and Friends. What's happening, Neil?
Hey, Daddy, I'm doing great. No, you're like a brother to me. You know that. You did a lot for. It was a two-way street. You know that. You did a lot for my family when times were needed, and you did a lot for me to make me laugh after tough games. You know, when we would lose, you were always a guy to crack a smile, make a joke about something. But it's great seeing you, brother. You know, I miss you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, I know it's been too long, and
we see each other at funerals. It seems that's bad.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
we gotta
the only.
get together and see each other when for good times.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's the only bad thing. But listen, we talk and we communicate, and right now that's the way the world. That's the way the world is working. But
Yep.
there doesn't, there isn't a day that I don't think about you and your jersey's behind me, and I always see it, and I tell people all the time, look, there's so many pieces in life, and what happens if I don't go to Pittsburgh, and end up there, and you allow me to stay there for years, and a lot of people don't know that I built my network really because of you. I mean, I started
a two-way street. It was a two-way street.
What I'm saying?
Yep.
It's,
yep.
I told a story about how when I got to Pittsburgh and, here you are, you're the starting quarterback, but you said to me, hey, I need a favor. So this is a story a lot of people don't know. You're like, hey, I need a favor. And I was like, okay, what's the favor? You got to get Mario Lemieux to sign something for me. And I was like, I was kind of scratching my head going, Neil, you're the starting quarterback of the Steelers, man. Like, you can do that. And I would imagine you'd be able to do that. And, we went down to the locker room. We met him that time and, been friends with him since. And, legendary, I mean, how many guys have their mural on a building and they're still playing? That was kind of one of the things that I used to be like, wow,
And that year was crazy. That's when Yammer Yager was a rookie too.
Yep. They came back and they won, they went back to back.
Yep.
Stanley Cups. But getting back to you. So one of the things that is so commendable and it's impressive at the same time is, you played 14 seasons in the NFL, which is not an easy thing to do. And, we always joke around, NFL stands for not for long. But you went and outdid all that. But let's take it back. I know the history, but let's share the history with our viewers and our listeners. You grew up in Madison, New Jersey. You played at Madison High School, and you played for one of the legends in the state of New Jersey, and Coach Monica, which I know all the history because I heard all the stories, and I followed between all your brothers and everything going on. So tell us about growing up in Madison.
Well, I'm from a small town in Madison, New Jersey, northern New Jersey. A lot of people know it. It's close to Morristown. I was the youngest of 9 kids. Had all my brothers play Division I football, except my brother Jack and Matthew. But it was a very competitive family. And with Ted Monica there, he just recently passed away at age 90. And he had such a wonderful career at Madison High School. All my brothers never lost a high school football game. So they all came out of high school, all 3 of my brothers. One went to Penn State, one went to Duke, and the other one, Stephen, transferred out of Michigan, and Peter went to New Hampshire. But literally, they came out 44-0 out of high school. So they were big shoes and big standards that was set there at that high school football program. Unfortunately, we weren't undefeated. We were good, but we weren't as good as the other teams were that came out of Madison. But working with Coach Monica, he was probably one of the most intense, hardest coaches I ever worked for. I mean, when I went to Maryland, Bobby Ross and Joe Krivak were more or less a laid-back people, not a big screamer, when Ted Monica was a big screamer. So I tip my hat to Ted Monica because, you know, you can't coach the way he coaches now. The world won't let you do that with the screaming and the yelling. But I never understood why he was so tough on me, but he saw talent in me that he knew if I didn't take advantage of would just go to waste. And he's a big part of my success in the NFL and going to University of Maryland. Because, you know, with my dad was working around the clock. He was raising 9 kids. So he used to drop me off at football camps. I'd get dropped off at Penn State football camp. He would never stay there, turn around and leave. And I'd wait in line by myself. And I learned how to compete. And people always say, how do you learn how to compete? You learn how to compete to get in front of the line. So if you want to get in front of the line, you got to be one of the best throwers out there. And that's what I learned to do. I went to Boston College football camp, went to Penn State, went to Rutgers, jumped all around, and just learned to compete at a young age and wanted to be the best I possibly could. I'm not a big guy, Daddy, as you're well aware of saying no one works harder than me, or no, you know, I work 110%. I believe in 100%. I believe, how would I know who else works harder? I mean, because, because you and I trained for many years at Maryland together, but I was a big film watcher. I was a big studier of the game. I kind of enjoyed watching tape. And that's the one thing I do miss to this day is the film watching, because I really enjoyed attacking third down defenses and looking at the big picture on how to attack a defense. That really, really got me excited to do week in, week out.
And, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. Like, I had Brian Baldinger on the show, and, you know, he has that segment he does. It's called Baldy's Breakdowns.
I've seen it, yeah.
And that is so, if you're a young coach, that's the stuff that you want to see, because, you know, he brings in a Pro Bowler. I mean, all these guys that are big name guys, and they sit there and they break down, you know, tell us what you're doing here. Watch what you're doing here. What are you doing wrong? What are you doing? And I mean, it is, he's really, between him and Ron Jaworski with that, they've done an outstanding job of educating, you know, the younger generation on where the game is going, how it's played, and, you know, from everything from zone blocking to, you know, tackling and playing defenses. I mean, how to attack a defense, it's incredible.
Well, I would love to be a third down specialist. I don't even care in college or in pros. I would like that to be my title. I brought the 5 wides into the NFL in 1992 with Cordell Stewart. Yeah. And I learned at a young age as a quarterback, as a young rookie quarterback, right to my second year there, you better get rid of the ball, because these people are so fast up front. They know how to bring pressure. So Ron Earhart, our offensive coordinator at the time with the Steelers, told me, I'm not protecting you. You have to learn how to get rid of the ball. And that helped me throughout my career not to get sacks and to get rid of the football.
And you know what? I was blessed and had the great fortune of being there, you know, in the beginning when you started. And I mean, look, the first year of starting, you were 3-0 out of the gate. You know, and it was like, wow, man, he's like getting it done. And, you know, and listen, you came close one time to getting to the Super Bowl, and then you took the Steelers to the Super Bowl. You came up short, but a lot of guys don't even get a chance to even play in the Super Bowl. So you know, that's that right there is commendable.
I know. And that game could have went either way. I understand that. I took a lot of heat of that loss, but you know what? That's part of playing the game of quarterback. But I look at, like you said, you know how many great quarterbacks never even get a chance of getting near a Super Bowl. And I was blessed enough to play in 2 of them. I played with one here with the Tennessee Titans. I didn't win it either there. But just the experience and getting to have that opportunity to play in front of the whole world was something you'll never forget, especially with the teammates and the coaches and the hard work that goes into it. People don't realize, Daddy, I know you do, but a lot of the fans don't realize the ball bounces one way or the other. Sometimes the best team doesn't always win. And that's just the game of football. It's a love of football. It's you just have to keep reminding yourself it's a game that we play.
But you know what? I know guys that would give probably their left arm to have been in the position that you've been in. And, like you say, there's great guys that don't even get to some guys don't even get past the first round of the playoffs, let alone get to the playoffs.
Yep. And that's why I feel bad for a lot of the guys who are great, especially great quarterbacks like the Matthew Staffords, who've been in Detroit their whole career. And he's a great quarterback, but he never got a chance to even look at a Super Bowl or a long time, even a long run at the playoffs. And I've been to enough franchises where I played in 4 AFC championship games, been to Pro Bowls, been to 2 Super Bowls. So I just, I'm blessed to say I've done it all except one. I haven't won the big one and never will, but that's okay.
And I have to say, I've been at both of your Super Bowls, so I could say that was, a fun time and nerve-wracking at the same time because, I'm cheering for you. And, it's like, oh, man, you're like going through the stress, even though I'm not the one getting dressed to go out there. But I'm like, I remember sitting in Arizona, that game, and, man, I couldn't even, like, sit in my seat.
Oh, I know.
Because, that was such a game where it went this way, and then all of a sudden, bam, you guys came right back and whatnot. But the whole time you sit there, and I was with our boy Mickey C. sitting there. We're both like, oh, come on, Neil, come on, Neil. And that was probably the greatest time for me at that point in life because I got to see you go from here to here to here, and to watch that grow and watch it like the plan formulate and, and I'm not afraid to say this. And if he was in front of me, I would say it to him again. Mel Kiper was wrong, because we used to joke around about it. Mel's like, yeah, well, Neil O'Donnell's going to be a free agent. What? What football are you watching? You're too worried about putting spray in your hair than watching. And he's in Maryland, of all places. So that should be like natural progression for, and for all the fans out there, Mel Kiper back then, I'm not going to say now, was Mr. NFL guru, draft guru, whatever you want to call him. And he had the nerve to tell my boy that he was going to be a free agent. We were all laughing like, yeah, right.
Well, remember, I was supposed to go to the Seahawks the second round. That's what Lee Steinberg, my agent, was telling me. And that's when Jeff George and Andre Ware came out as juniors and didn't actually have to say it. And then what happened there was the second round comes off the air because remember, they only had the first 2 rounds on TV and then it went off. And thank God I went quickly in the third round. And who called me and worked me out for the Steelers was, George Stewart.
Yep.
Stu.
And I see Stewie. And you know what? Let's tell a story about it. It's so funny. I was at the combine. So I'm sitting there with Marvin Lewis, with George Stewart, and I forget who else was there. And they tell the story about how I was spending so much time with you over there. Like, they were like, well, Big Daddy, what position do you play?
Yeah.
Stewie worked me out for a long snapper because you guys lost. You didn't have one. So Stewie goes the whole time. He goes, I thought, Big Daddy, you were on the team. That's why I wanted to see you snap. And I was like, yeah, well, I was Neil's valet. I kind of just went in and did whatever. And
no, you were a lot more than that.
I know, but I'm saying it was funny because sometimes I would drive you to practice because I didn't have a car or whatever. And but that was such a learning experience. And I think if we told a lot of the stories, the fans would be like, wow, because it was like, I tell people, we met Alex Van Pelt, who was the young, at the time was the guy at the University of Pittsburgh. And we formed a friendship with him. And then obviously the hockey thing where then all of a sudden we're friends with Tom Rich and Steve Rich. And, it's endless. And I have to say, I've been asked to write a book. So someone's writing a book on me. And you know what? That'll be a big piece of the book because it tells it explains, the relationships and a lot of my growth um, professionally, both personally.
And we both love Pittsburgh. I had no intentions of leaving the Steelers at the time. Mr. Rooney was actually sick, so he wasn't really negotiating deals then. It was another gentleman dealing, so it kind of got sideways. And I went from at the time the second best team in the NFL to the worst team around, and they still haven't figured it out yet. As the New York Jets, which was a huge eye opener.
And the funniest thing was, I saw you more where you were everywhere else than when you were in New York.
Yes, correct.
Yep. I'm like, I found myself in Cincinnati. I'm in Nashville.
Yeah.
And obviously I was in Pittsburgh with you for 3 years. So I was like, wow, he's 5 minutes away from me. And I think I saw you like twice in 2 years.
But Daddy, that was the hardest time because we didn't have a stadium. We trained at Hofstra.
Yeah.
And we drove to the Meadowlands every time.
It was an away game every year, every week.
Remember the traffic? The traffic would be brutal. It'd be 2 hours. It was so hard to even play a game there. So it's too bad that they didn't do something out in Long Island, because people from New York and New Jersey still remember MetLife is still as a giant stadium.
Yeah.
So it's still very hard.
And all the old Jet fans, they were used to Shea Stadium. When we were growing up, that was their, that was their field. But
Jets and Mets and Giants and Yankees usually.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the one thing that I would say, say something, give something to the fans, meaning the viewers and the listeners. Give a story that really means a lot to you from your 14 years of playing football. Say something or let them know something that's probably not out there that maybe I don't even know.
Oh man, there's so many ups and downs of playing so many years in the NFL. I do remember probably one of the best moments ever was, playing and beating the AFC Championship game of the Colts when we went out there and went to our first Super Bowl. It was such a frustrating long 2 years because I played one of my best games the year before in the AFC Championship game, threw for 354 yards, and all everyone remembered was the last pass to Barry Foster that was knocked down. And then the Chargers ended up going to the Super Bowl and getting killed by the 49ers. Yeah. So I look back at, when Bill Cowher said, hey, we knocked on the door this year, we're going to come back next year and knock down this door and go to the Super Bowl. When your body's that beat up and your mind's mentally that tired, you could never think that that's going to be true, that you don't go for a year from now, because all the ways that ball bounced, good and bad, to get you to an AFC Championship game. Fans don't realize how hard it really is to get to a Super Bowl and more or less get to an AFC or an NFC Championship game. You may not be the better team all the time because it may go, a fumble or an interception or an offsides or something like that. The other team gets a chance and goes in and wins a game that no one thought they would. So I think that AFC Championship game, when I hit Ernie Mills down the sideline to go ahead late in the game, I'll never forget being on Three River Stadium, the old Steelers Stadium. I was standing on the field at the end of the game, and all the stands were going up and down, up and down. I think that was a real good sign saying we need a new stadium here because this thing's ready to fall down. But I look back on my career though, Daddy, and look at all the coaches I played for. I was drafted by Hall of Fame coach Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Bill Parcells. As much as you couldn't stand them when I played for them, I think you respect them when you leave the game. I had a long talk with Phil Simms about that. Phil and Bill collided all the time. Yeah. And then I think you respect them when you leave the game because you remember the things he taught you. And then I came down here to Nashville, was more or less thinking I was done playing. And Jeff Fisher called me out of the blue and said, come on down to Nashville. I want you to back up Steve McNair. And I said, where's Nashville? I'm from New Jersey. I wasn't going south. I went down there one year and ended up playing another 5 years for Jeff Fisher, which was a great run and a great way to end my career.
So, one of the fans that had sent me a note and they wanted to ask you, So what did you think when Bill Cowher asked you to come to Pittsburgh in 2004 when Tommy Maddox was hurt?
Oh, I remember the call. So I was kind of, I'm a little superstitious. I put my shoes on the same way when I played, my pads on the same way. I do all that.
Well,
And
remember, not to cut you off, remember we used to have our joke. If we play bad in those shoes, out they
gotta go.
go.
The shoes gotta go. Throw them out. Give me a new pair, Deuce. Give me a new pair. So
Exactly.
everyone knows what number I wore. What number did I wear?
14.
You know, if I could write a storyline and say I played in the NFL for 14 years with really, knock on wood, no really major surgeries. I had surgeries before. I didn't want to take the chance of maybe going back one more year.
Yeah.
And Coach Cowher was, you know, he and I are very close even now to this day. And he wanted me to come back, and Tommy Maddox got hurt. And I just didn't want to take that chance and risk maybe getting this severe injury, because you see it all the time. I mean, guys come out of retirement and they get hurt, and then they end up with the rest of their lives with a huge scar on their knee, and they're never the same, their bodies ever again. So if it was like a year maybe before that, I would have considered it. But even I had an opportunity to even go to Minnesota after 14 years in the NFL and play another 2 more years in Minnesota. And I just, I didn't want to take the chance. I kind of felt like my family gave enough time for Dad to do what he had to do in the NFL. It was time for me to give my time back to my family and support them and go see them play games.
So Big Ben owes you.
Yeah.
Because I was just
Big Ben's doing fine right now. Yep.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying he owes you for giving up that opportunity and letting him play.
Yeah.
But that would be the big joke I would say to him when I see him. But so then, football ends, and then, okay, let everybody know what you decided to do after playing football, because I know, but we want the fans to know.
Well, this is the thing that, everyone thinks, Daddy, like to be a commentator or color analyst is the perfect job. So that's what I kind of got into after I finished playing. I said, let me try this out, because I saw so many other quarterbacks do it, and some liked it, some didn't, some were good at it, some didn't do as well as others. So I tried that for a few years, and I really was I thought, like, you fly in Saturday, go to watch the walkthrough, and then fly back out private Sunday night, so you're back home by Monday. Unless you're the A team, that doesn't happen. You fly like every other individual. You get on that Southwest, that United flight, leave Thursday, and come back Monday. I was doing all the bad games because I was like the C or D team. So with CBS. So I was doing at the time when Seattle wasn't good. So I was traveling all the way across the country. I was doing a lot of Arizona games. So I did that for 3 years. And then I came to a point, I said, if you really want to do this, you have to commit yourself to more in the off season. And I'd make these big call sheets. I'd have all my notes down and really be prepared, because I love to watch tape. And CBS did a great job of sending you a FedEx with all the breakdown of all the games. So I'd watch all these, and guess what? You wouldn't use a quarter of it, because you never know how the game's going to go. So you have all this stuff. This guy gets hurt. This guy comes in and plays. They don't share this with this guy. They don't, play this guy much. So it was kind of like hodgepodge. I did it for a little while. Then I left. And then I went down to a Super Bowl in Miami. And they did this big raffle at the Doral. So each corporation or people at these black tie affairs would auction off who they wanted the quarterback to play with at the Blue Monster, the Doral golf tournament. So I had a guy named John Gilman, who I really didn't know that well. He picked me to play with his foursome. So I get to the second, third hole. We're playing golf. I'm sitting in John's cart. I said, so John, what do you do for a living? And he said, I sell grass. I said, you sell grass? I said, legally or illegally? He said, I invented field turf. And from then on, we just started talking. He said, have you ever played the New England Patriots Stadium? He gave me the whole history, his first field that went in Nebraska. So to speed up the whole, what I'm doing now is he had a bunch of Super Bowl tickets he was trying to get rid of. So I said, here, give them to me. I gave them to our guy, Mickey C. sold the tickets, blah, blah, blah. I brought him back the money. He said, man, I like the way you work. I like how fast you get things done. I said, oh, I appreciate it, John. And he goes, I would love for you to come work for me. I said, oh, I don't know if I want to sell turf, John. I said, you know, I'm still working with CBS, you know, let me see how that goes. He was a big emailer, so he always kept in contact with me. He sent me emails at 4 o'clock in the morning. And he really wanted me to come on and start selling turf. So I said, John, I'll try it for a year, see if I like it. So I came on board, and I've been selling field turf now for, wow, 14 years, 14, 15 years. And I don't cold call, I get leads. So any guy I played with or, you know, coaches calls me and says, can you come up here and give me a price on a field? And I love my job, I really do.
Well, I remember I was trying to get you my my hometown, the school district's account. And that had like 5 schools, but then we won't name any names, but the other person who was the local rep, I happen to also know, and I get a phone call. Dude, what are you doing? I thought, you know, I've known you since you were in 7th grade. And I'm like, hey, you know what? It's my brother, man. I gotta try to get him in, you know, sorry. What do you want me to do? You know, but, you know, it's been, I'll tell you, it seems like yesterday we were in College Park, and you know, we've seen so many people unfortunately come and go, and you know, both business wise and personally.
For sure.
You know what? It's now we're going through these hard times, and you know, we're all just trying to survive and be healthy. And you know, doing this show is a lot of fun for me, and you know, I get to reconnect with you and so many people, and it's funny, the turnout when I ask people to do it. I mean, what? I just asked you 2 days ago, and boom, you know, here you are. And a lot of guys have been that way, and now I'm starting to get a, hey, dude, what are you gonna have me on? Come on, Daddy-O. You know, you forgot where you came from? I'm like, oh man, that's like the last thing I've done.
You have a pretty strong Rolodex. You know you do.
Yeah, no, I do. And,
yeah,
you know, I sometimes may not use it accordingly, but for this, I am, because I understand names are what draw, and people want to know what Neil O'Donnell's doing now, what a Brian Baldinger's doing now, even though you see him on TV all the time. But those are the things that excite people, and I think I have this thing down. But you know what? It's like everything else. You got to keep working at it.
Sure.
I am, and you know, even today I spoke with a speech coach. You know, just that I was able to work with, you know, because of Fox and Friends doing that, and I'm working back with him. And you know, I have Brian Kilmeade, who's a Saturday morning, who's the weekday host, one of those, who's kind of, I always call him my TV mentor. You know, because he's a guy that I would work with, and he's the tee up guy. You know,
tell Hannity I still haven't got my book yet either.
Yeah, I know. I will. You and about 2 other people are.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen him. You know, unfortunately, when I got the coronavirus, everyone found out I had it because him and Tucker Carlson told the whole world. But you know what? They were wishing me well, so I'm not going to complain about that. And then the one thing I will share with the fans, I've had the great fortune of being, like you said, almost like being a brother, because I've known your family for so many years, and we've done incredible things and so much fun and ups and downs, and we've laughed, we've cried, we've done everything, and you got a beautiful family. And Leslie, your wife, I love to death. She's like she used to say to me, I'm going to be the sister that you never wanted. And I was like, well, just stick to the cooking, because you're the best cook in the world. But, you know, I love her to death too. And make sure you tell her I send my love.
I definitely will.
And then lastly, I ask each guest to at the end to ask me a question. Now, let me give the mic to you, and you be the host, and I'll be the guest.
I'm concerned, Daddy. Like you're around all these, like you're more involved in the player today than I am. Like you still talk to these guys. I know this world right now doesn't let you go to the locker rooms, but you have access to the locker rooms to talk to the guys, see how they're doing. Is the team camaraderie still there in the locker room, like when we were with the Steelers? Or you remember, like we used to spend a lot of time in that locker room, the players. I think now with everything with these phones and the instant Twitter accounts and all that, and the Facebook and all that, I just think that the locker room's not so close as it was when we played and when you played, even at Maryland. I mean, we didn't care where you came from, who you were. We were such a close-knit group that every Saturday or Sunday we went to war together to try to win a game. And people don't realize that, and it's the closest thing to going to war, football, because you try to hurt each other. Let's be honest. If you knock out the starting quarterback, you have a better chance to win. Yeah. So I look at these young kids now making all this money. Is the locker room still the way? I know it's changed, but are they still as close as it was when we were all together?
I think it's changed. And, like you said, back in the day, we would hang out after practice and even in Pittsburgh, we would joke around and, I'd run in the equipment room and give those guys a hard time. And
even after the games, we'd hang out in the parking lot for hours.
Yeah, yep. I mean, those tailgates in Nashville were, I couldn't thank Leslie enough. Even though I wasn't a big drinker, I always had to have one of her Bloody Marys because that was the bomb, to do that. And I always tell everybody, I remember me and Newsom at your Bills game when we were on the visiting sideline, and I'm calling Delta to change our flights because I'm like, I'm not going back to Neil's house after this. They lost and blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, Dyson runs
Music City Miracle.
Runs right past me with the ball in his hand. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I hang up on Delta, and I'm like, I guess we're hanging out in Nashville tonight, Mike.
Yeah.
And, but those times, I don't think you see that as often now. I mean, obviously this year I haven't been able to go to anything. I mean, the last thing I went to team affiliated was the Combine in Indy.
Yeah.
Now there's no Pro Bowl. The Super Bowl, if my brother Jimmy and the Bills get in, I will be there. That I know, because you can't miss that. But right now, I don't have any plans to be there this year. And then we don't know what the Combine's even going to hold,
But that's the thing that I miss so much was the locker room. Like people ask me, do you miss opening day? And I miss the locker room. We used to play the stupidest games in there and mess with each other's wallets, their keys, their cars. That was part of the whole fun. I don't know if the kids still do all that, those games like we used to do. Even like go after the coaches somewhat. I just think right now it's such a business-minded attitude. And, hey, God bless them. They're making all this money because there's a lot of older guys who paved the way for me. And I guess I paved the way for the next generation. And it's going to continue on. But I don't see like as many guys having as much fun as we did when we were playing football. I just think like they practice and then they go home. I just miss that locker room. I miss the laughter, especially now. I mean, I see a few guys every now and then who I played with. But when you're playing ball, like our days off for Sunday nights and Mondays, we'd always make an effort to get together, even go have lunch or go out and have some fun.
So, I wasn't going to get into this, but we got to tell the funniest story that has ever been a part of you and me. And let's see if you remember this. So you had played, and you're going to start laughing as soon as I mention this. You guys played in Cleveland,
Dracula.
So we end up, you end up losing,
Yeah.
and we end up going out all night with.
But tell them how you got there.
Oh, first and foremost, so for all our listeners and viewers, Neil comes up with the idea, or I don't know if you came up with it or I came up with it, but anyway, I take a limousine by myself all the way to Cleveland. So
60 miles.
I watched the game. Cleveland wins last minute. Well, we take the limo back, and Neil and I decide to go out with, remember Don Criqui?
Yeah.
The old announcer.
Yeah.
And we end up seeing Clay Matthews. And we're sitting there, we're all, we're drinking, having some laughs and whatnot. Well,
we were in the flats there in Cleveland.
Yeah, we were at Howl at the Moon. That was the name of the place. I'll never forget it. So, okay, so all that happens. We end up getting limoed back. And Neil, and this is really the funnest, the most hilarious part of this whole thing. Neil is supposed to be on a TV show the next morning. Well, Neil was not going to make it to that TV show the next morning because we didn't get home till I think 4 a.m. And I believe that show was on at 8 or 9. Yeah. So all of a sudden, I walk in, I turn on the TV just to see what they're going to say. So Neil's in his room sleeping, and I'm watching in the living room, the TV. And the hosts are saying, well, we're excited that Neil, they had a tough loss, but Neil O'Donnell is going to be here with us. And that was like at 8:10. 8:30 comes by. 8:30 comes and goes, well, we're waiting on Neil O'Donnell to be here. And Neil, you still have time if you can get here. And then finally, like I think about 10 of 9, I walk into Neil's room and I said, hey, Neil, turn the TV on. We're sitting there, both of us watching, going, the host is like, well, we have 5 minutes left. And Neil, you could still bang out the last 5 minutes if you can get here. Well, obviously, Neil was sitting right next to me, and we didn't make it.
I need my 8 hours of sleep. I was hurting.
I think that was probably one of the funnest times that I ever had with you, and a great memorable moment that I'll never forget. And
Daddy, I've been in so many things with you. I mean, snowstorms, car accidents.
Oh, you know what? We don't have enough time to get into all these stories, but you're right. We could go for probably about 3 hours and just talk about so many things and all the fun we've had. And
fans don't know, Daddy, you're actually a pretty good cook too. You do. You cook well, and people don't realize that.
Well, I remember those meals that we used to have when, here to the fans that are listening and the viewers. Here's 2 northern New York, New Jersey guys that all of a sudden we're in Pittsburgh, and we're like, man, where are we getting food at? And that was like spaghetti. What was that? Spaghetti Factory.
Yeah.
And we're like
Luciano's.
Yeah, we're like, where do we get white pizza? And all of a sudden we get finally we're like, you know what? We got to start cooking. So I never forget cooking.
Giant Eagle.
That's right, Giant Eagle, load up. And then Leslie came in the picture and took me out of the picture on the weekends. During the week, we locked it down. But listen, those were the greatest times of my life, and I can never say thank you and I'm grateful and appreciative for all of that. And Neil, let me say thank you for coming on. It's the storytelling and sharing some of the things that we've been able to do together and letting the fans know that we're just 2 down-to-earth guys that have been friends since 1985 or 6.
Yep.
86.
Yep.
And thanks for coming on, Big Daddy and Friends.
And you look great, Daddy. Keep working. You're looking good, man.
I'm down almost 60 pounds.
Keep it going, man.
Yeah,
Keep it going.
Oh, I am, because I know you've always gotten on me about my weight. So now, as you can see, I'm really taking it to heart.
If you don't have your health, you have nothing. You know that.
No, I know that. So
So
to everyone out there, make sure that you follow us, Big Daddy and Friends, and you get to see great interviews like the one we just did with my best friend and brother, Neil O'Donnell. And until next time, Neil, we'll do this again. Thanks for coming on, Big Daddy and Friends. And we'll see you soon, my man. I love you.